Thank you. Welcome to be here. Uh, Looking forward to these conversations. Hopefully this works.
Here, I got us.
So we will briefly walk through our Takeda's enterprise AI journey, how we are leveraging GenAI in our use cases. We briefly talk about our corporate philosophy, vision and strategy. Then we will talk about use cases and workflows. And then finally we will talk about the main backbone of our GenAI, how we are using it in terms of reusability, scalability perspective, which is compliant with the healthcare industry. And finally, we will look at AI Asset Registry also, which allows us to promote reusability, data discoverability, and we basically register all our assets, which include data, vectors, models, which little bit about Takeda. Takeda is a 244-year-old company, and one of the message from our CEO is also that we want to be a data-driven, outcome-based, leading biopharmaceutical company. So about brief history about our corporate philosophy, which is based on PTRB, which is patient, trust, reputation, business in that order. And it's not just a slogan, it's a framework which is being used for AI, also for decision-making purposes. So to go further in terms of numbers, this slide speaks for itself. So that shows the footprint of Takeda worldwide. Moving on to our AI strategy vision-wise, we want to build a systems which are better, faster, and more efficient. When we say better, it means better in terms of quality. So how we can improve our clinical trial system, how we can improve our data quality and governance side of things. And when we talk about more efficient and faster means is that we are building solution faster without compromising on our data standards, ethics and compliance. So which means basically how we can reduce our clinical design time, how we can improve our market to value, time to the market, and how we can leverage GenAI to accelerate our whole manufacturing life cycle also. And when we say efficiency is how we can make sure that we are leveraging AI and GenAI in a way that improve our time to value, accelerate, reduce the workflow optimization, reduce the time there. So that's basically the poster picture of our AI, GenAI vision. And to execute any vision, without execution, vision is just a mere word for hallucination. So that is where we partner with EY to bring that vision into light.
So, hi everybody, Kat Zimmerman. I am a health and life sciences AI leader at AI. I had the privilege of working on this program with Naveed and many of the folks in the audience here today at Takeda over the last year. So bringing this strategy to life, we had some centralized teams to make sure there was standardization, governance, especially in a regulated industry, like Naveed was talking about a little bit earlier, like life sciences, making sure as we're doing these cutting edge AI solutions, we're covered from the governance side of the paperwork and the regulatory impacts, but also the technical side of actually monitoring these solutions and making sure that they are being used in a compliant way that Takeda and their ethos are comfortable with above and beyond what regulations say are necessary. Change management, making sure that these solutions actually are rolled out, have the impact and the value to Takeda that they can have and they reach their full potential. Design, innovation, value management, all of these pieces I know we don't love to think about when we have our technical hats on, but this is how we get that throughput to value. And these complemented our core platform teams that drive, the technical standardization, maintainability, standards, governance, but all of the soft pieces around this put these tools into people's hands and change their actual workflows. So Naveed's now going to talk about some of the use cases that were delivered at the nexus of all of these centralized capabilities.
So this is a glimpse of the use cases. So we are leveraging GenAI from R&D, commercial, quality controls. So for example, in SOP, we are using SOP Assistant, which can help us to make sure that SOP follow a uniform structure there. Then also we look at how we can standardize those things. There's a field rep co-pilot, which help us, the field reps, to get insight on their fingertips when they are engaging with the HCPs. So these are the use cases which help us not only on R&D, on commercial, leading to quality control, and also how we can optimize our workflows.
So going into the core platform technologies that we use to both accelerate these use cases, but also drive the standardization, governance, maintainability of all of these solutions so that we can build quickly, but also maintain for a long time without that extra burden. So first up, we have a data vectorization pipeline. So Takeda has a large amount of its data living in Databricks. I'm sure that's very relatable to everyone listening to this talk. And then as we think about GenAI, making that data usable, but still following the core data engineering practices that we're used to with traditional pipelines. Is a bit of a nascent move, but very important in a regulated industry, very important as we're striving for reusability and maintainability to create this centralized framework to do so. So it's configurable, hold many different types of inputs, and use the full suite of Databricks solutions from Mosaic AI, from your model serving, you need your embedding models to get things into your vector store. Unity catalog for all the tracking and the governance in the actual vectorization pipeline itself. Obviously our Mosaic AI vector search, as well as delta indexing for those updates to the pipeline. So it's not just your initial ingestion pipeline, but it's also your production run state pipeline with all of the layers of additional governance, monitoring, and logging that you would expect in your traditional structured data engineering pipelines.
So the purpose is that Takeda is a highly federated organization. So we want to provide a framework which promotes reusability and which allows different data scientists in different business units, business functions to move quickly, to have a framework to follow which is secure, efficient, and also fully compliant. So this enables a quick onboarding of the use cases, and this has already helped to reduce the development time frame. And because first part of any GenAI is data, so this enables us to build up the data pipeline. So once we have the data pipeline, the next step is how we can use this deployable RAG pattern, how we can leverage Takeda's data in connection with LLM and provide a unified way for team to leverage this one.
And at this point, Takeda operates in a multi-cloud, multi-technology environment. So a lot of our data's sitting in Databricks. We wanted some of that flexibility to do our application serving maybe in a cloud native way, depending on what applications we needed to integrate into. So the separation of that data ingestion where our data is living in Databricks with the actual application serving, which is this step of the platform, helps us maintain that reusability, but it's a fully configurable platform where you can do your data ingestion and your model serving maybe through Databricks with your front end through an AWS native Kubernetes hosted style platform. This is really just driving that standardization through that 0 to 1, right? We want people to get 0 to 1 and start measuring their value as quickly as possible. And then in that 1 to full production rollout, maintain standardization in your code base as much as you can. So in your handoff to maintenance, it's not 100 different solutions that very much so feel like they were built by 100 different developers, but rather driving standardization for all those standard pieces and the acceleration of that 0 to 1.
So we wanted to make sure that data scientists or AI practitioners are not worried about integration. They are focused on innovative work. We provide the framework, and that makes sure that there is a consistent, uniformed workway. And that leads us to the third component, which is responsible AI. Everybody is talking about responsible AI, and it's become more important in a regulated industry like healthcare, life sciences, and finance. So what we really want to do is not an afterthought of responsible AI. We wanted to make sure that when we are building that whole framework, we embed this responsible AI so that it's not an afterthought. We're making sure that it's compliant. We are making sure that we have the right checks and guardrails in place, so that ensure that the development is following the best practices of the industry and regulations.
And this framework and code base, not only does it integrate in with the generative AI applications that are deployed throughout Takeda and throughout this program, but it's also an extension of those traditional policies and procedures that I think a lot of companies are used to responsible AI kind of starting and ending in that space, and then being disjointed from the concept of applications in production. GenAI really disrupted that whole space and created this need, especially in life sciences, these regulated industries, to make sure we have that real-time monitoring. So this solution, completely configurable based on the risk tiering of the use case. So coming out of that policy and procedure phase, what do we think the risk of this use case is? Who are the users? What is the data? And we can both configure how stringent the guardrails need to be across toxicity, bias, PHI masking, as well as, is this scanner going to be synchronous or asynchronous? So in our asynchronous world, almost acting as logging. Who was interacting with the model? If it's not going to cause a massive disruption, if something happened that we wanted to block, we'll log it and handle it afterwards. We have dashboards built on top of that. For our higher risk applications, having that synchronous scanner that is blocking the interaction with the generative AI solution and telling the user, this has been blocked for this reason, or pulling out the PHI from the query, from the prompt, the response, to make sure that we're staying in compliance with both the regulation, but also Takeda's ethical obligations and standards that they've set for themselves. So this was integratable across AWS and Databricks solutions, and then all of those logs came back into the Databricks environment, into Lakehouse for the reporting, so that the head of legal and ethics compliance can see the interaction, not only on a volume basis, but also start to see the types of triggers and flags that are being setting off by use case to then maybe address risk tiering, inform future solutions, perform an action to make sure that this program is managed effectively while still creating value through generative AI.
So with this, having responsible AI already incorporated from the whole vectorization to deployable RAG pattern approach, the next step where if you ask any organization how many models you have in production, what are the model assets, many organizations struggles or there is no uniform way or framework in place. So this AI Asset Registry is enabled us to make sure that our data assets, which include data, vectorization, models, and all the metadata is discoverable, traceable, so that it promotes reusability. If an other business unit is doing the same sort of data, they can look at this asset registry and they already take the vectorized data rather than reinventing and going back the whole process again. So this provides us a cataloging capability that promotes reusability and scalability as we move forward.
And from a technical perspective here, this is modern MLOps, right? This is multi-cloud solutions, all sorts of different vector stores, all sorts of different foundational models hosted in Bedrock, in Azure, in Databricks native, but using the foundational capabilities of ML Flow to bring that together into one place, Unity Catalog, to then host out all of those models for reuse, but also for the tracking, validation of knowing every single model that's in production, whether it was fine-tuned, if it was fine-tuned, what was it fine-tuned on, so that we have not only the compliance side, but also as we then publish those assets, there's the reusability. So once again, accelerating that 0 to 1 development, but with governance and awareness of things actually fitting appropriately for your 0 to 1 and not reinventing the wheel, which also, with GenAI, there's a lot of compute costs, especially with the vectorization of large amounts of data. So anywhere we can start to reduce our compute by being intelligent about how we use these assets is a win for Takeda, and it's a win for the acceleration and the value you get back from your generative AI solutions.
So from the outcome perspective, we see that this whole framework enables us to move faster. As I said, our vision was from AI and GenAI perspective that we have a better, faster, and more efficient framework in place that help us to move quickly without compromising on an ethical perspective, responsible AI perspective. So this was enabled by the EY team support, and also we are thankful for Databricks account team that helped us to move through quickly. They were able to support us as help is needed. So this is just a start. There's a lot to come. Right now we are trying to see which RAG component we can identify so that there are, because in generally, if you look at clinical domain, health informatics, these are quite complex domains. So now we are seeing from use case to use case perspective that how we can improve the existing framework and we stay up to date with the latest technologies and trends and not just chasing the new terms, but making sure that it following the principle of Takeda's corporate philosophy, which is again, patient, trust, reputation, and business in that order. So with that, I would like to thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.